Are you lonely? Have you been lonely in the past? Maybe you're scared of being lonely in the future. There are few more difficult confessions to make than that we feel lonely. But why do we attach such discomfort to such an admission? Loneliness shouldn't be seen as a strange aberration. It's a basic feature of life we should make our peace with and learn to accept. Most people assume that no normal person could ever feel isolated, unless maybe some extreme circumstances have dictated so, such as moving to a new country where one doesn't speak the language, or during the inevitable suffering of a breakup. Yet in truth, a degree of loneliness is a fundamental part of being a sensitive, intelligent human. And it's surprisingly common to feel lonely. It's a very natural emotion to feel, and I believe we should attach no more shame to it than that which we attach to other more palatable emotions or desires we feel, such as anger, hunger, or thirst. Why is this important, you may ask? Well, a team at Brigham Young University analysed loneliness and its effects, and their conclusion? Loneliness kills. After looking at over 70 studies completed from 1908 to 2014, the team found that people that were lonely or socially isolated had a 30% higher chance of dying than those who had regular social contact. While this may seem alarming, and it's obviously important to maintain a balanced social life if possible, I would argue that it's our negative perception of loneliness that is hurting us unnecessarily, and that by thinking about it in a slightly different way, we can reduce some of this unnecessary suffering. Loneliness is actually a necessary feature of a complex existence. There are several big reasons for this. One of the ways that psychology tries to define loneliness is by looking at human needs and how they are met. It's called self-determination theory, and it suggests that all humans have three basic needs. First, we need autonomy, control over our own lives. Second, we need competence, the ability to master something and be good at it. And lastly, we need relatedness, to feel connections to other people. Loneliness, then, at its most basic and least complicated, is a feeling that our need for relatedness isn't being met. The truth is, a lot of what it would be extremely comforting to share about ourselves and our thoughts is going to be viewed as strange or disturbing to society at large. Many of the ideas in the recesses of our minds are too odd, contrary, subtle, or alarming to be safely revealed to anyone else. We face a choice between being honest or being accepted, and understandably, we often choose the latter. If we're not able to be our true, authentic selves, then this can lead to loneliness. Also, we can feel lonely when we feel we're not understood. However, we must be aware it takes a lot of energy to listen to and understand another person, and enter sympathetically into their experiences. We shouldn't blame others for their failure to focus on who we are. They might want to meet us, but we should accept that they will likely keep the topic of their own lives at the centre of the conversation. We're all going to die alone, which really means that our pain is for us alone to endure. Others can throw us words of encouragement and provide a brief respite from what the Buddha termed the inevitable suffering of life. However, it's deeply unlikely that we will ever find someone on exactly the same page of the soul as us. We will long for utter congruity, but there will be constant dissonance because we appeared on the earth at different times as the product of different families and experiences. And we're made of not just quite the same fabric, so they won't be thinking exactly the same as us at exactly the same time. On coming out of the cinema one night and looking out at the night sky, just when we want our partner to say something poetic and beautiful, they will, perhaps, be remembering a painfully dull, and to you, inappropriate detail from their own lives. Or vice versa. It is almost funny. We will almost certainly never meet the people best qualified to understand us, but they do exist. Probably they once walked past us in the high street, though neither of us had the slightest idea of the potential for connection. Or maybe they currently reside on a goat farm in Indonesia, or won't be born until the 22nd century. It isn't a conspiracy. We just need a little bit more luck. The problem is sure to get worse, the more thoughtful and perceptive we are. There'll be simply less people like us around. It isn't a romantic myth. Loneliness is a kind of tax that you have to pay for having a certain complexity of mind. The desire to undress someone is for a long time far more urgent than the desire for good conversation. And so we end up locked in relationships with certain people we don't have so much to say to, because we are blinded by an interest in the symmetry of a face or the colour of their remarkable eyes. And yet, despite all of this, we shouldn't be frightened or discomforted by a pervasive loneliness. It isn't a sign that life has gone wrong. It's what we should expect from the very start. And when we do, benefits can follow. Once we accept loneliness, we can get creative. We can start to sing, to write poetry, to produce books and blogs. Activities stemming from the realization that people around us won't ever fully understand us, but that others, separated across time and space, might just. The history of art is the record of people who couldn't find anyone in the vicinity to talk to, and we can take up their offer of intimacy in, say, the words of an ancient poet who died in 20 BC, or the lyrics of a singer who described exactly just our blues in a recording from Nashville in 1967. Loneliness makes us more capable of true intimacy. If ever better opportunities do come along, it heightens the conversation we have with ourselves. It gives us character. We don't repeat what everyone else thinks. We develop a point of view. We might be isolated for now, but we'll be capable of far closer, more interesting bonds with anyone who we do eventually locate and click with. Loneliness renders us elegant and strangely alluring. It suggests there's more about us to understand than the normal patterns of social intercourse can accommodate, which is something we can take pride in. When we admit our loneliness, we enter a long and grand tradition. We find ourselves in surprisingly great company. Enduring loneliness is almost invariably better than suffering the compromise of false community. Loneliness is simply a price we may have to pay for holding on to a sincere, ambitious view of what companionship must and could be.